Nyalche Chembo Toto Ningmi Chang, Donen Manum Chembo, Nyalche Dankara Dargam Santo, Sherman, Stumba Turje Chanla Kishom Sir Nishan Roar Zerni Jangamsa, Jabur Tujishan, Yelaman, Jimmy Panzojala, Soran. Gonjo Toban for Shinjilo, Gonjo Toban for Shinjilo, Gonjo Toban for Shinjilo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Today we are teaching the Shurangama Sutra. The Shurangama Sutra is actually something we taught for several sessions in 2019 at that time. What I wrote on this computer was October 22nd, 2019. This was the last class I gave at that time. What I wrote on this was, this concludes this section. See you next year. I wrote this, but what happened was next year was supposed to be 2020, but we didn't meet. The year after was 2021, and this year is 2022. Now we finally meet. Everyone knows what happened in between. At that time, the IP count for our listeners was 47,105. I checked my diary. There were 47,105 people listening to the teachings at that time. This was just the IP count. In reality, there might have been even more people. But later, various circumstances arose, and today we have very few listeners. Everyone knows this. I remember teaching the Shurangama Sutra on October 22nd, and that year came to a temporary end. The next day, it seems, the flight of Garuda was completed, and then we taught 3 words that strikes the vital point. Later that year, basically all the courses were temporarily concluded at that time. But later, the Shurangama Sutra was never continued, including the Ratnagotra Vibhaga, which was also paused at that time. But for the Ratnagotra Vibhaga, last year and the year before, we persevered and continued teaching it. As for this Shurangama Sutra, after an interval of nearly 3 years, today we resume teaching it again. Now we have so many people here, but if obstacles arise again in the future, I'm also thinking that no matter what, as long as I'm alive, I can complete it. But if I complete it regarding our listener count, whether this many people will listen or not, this is hard to say, because when we taught before, everyone was particularly joyful. At that time, so many people were listening. But now, with various conditions as they are, today we have only this much. If various obstacles arise again in the future, at least we can teach it to a few people, and after completion, distribute the audio to everyone. This is also an idea. Generally speaking, we will certainly see things through to completion. We pray for the blessings of the 3 jewels and Dharma protectors. The remaining portion is not too much, perhaps every day after some time passes, because the earlier parts are more difficult, the later parts are slightly easier. In this way, perhaps we can teach more each time and maybe not take up too much time. But no matter what, everyone should make effort, because everyone knows about the Shurangama Sutra, the lotus for becoming Buddha, the Shurangama for awakening. Moreover, the Shurangama Sutra is indeed particularly important in the Chan school for recognizing mind and seeing nature. It can be said to be like the direct pointing instructions of Dzogchen in the Sutra teachings. Through it, countless practitioners have achieved awakening. It possesses special blessings. Such a scripture, indeed, in our process of studying it, whether for individuals or groups, there will certainly be some obstacles. But such obstacles, for those who are diligent and possess superior wisdom, should not be able to penetrate or find opportunities to exploit. So I think regarding the Shurangama Sutra, everyone should also find ways. This is what I think. Because for the Shurangama Sutra, actually, I have not received the transmission either. Because its transmission, later the Tibetan transmission, I don't know if it exists. Chankya Kutuktu translated it all, and there are 2 chapters in between that I also found in the Derga Kangyur have this transmission. But for the entire Shurangama Sutra, it was later said, I remember it was said this way, now there is this Tibetan version. That Tibetan version has 2 different editions. Now the new one, Alak Zenkar Rinpoche Tupten Nyima and others compiled the Kangyur, the Sichuan Collation Bureau. In their Kangyur there is this Tibetan version. But I don't have this transmission now either, so I was also thinking of obtaining it. Later, Chankya Kutuktu's translation. If there is a transmission, I'd also like to get it, but temporarily speaking, there isn't one. So before we reach those 2 chapters in the middle, we won't recite the transmission lineage now. So for me personally, Every day I have roughly looked at some other commentaries before because this sutra is very famous and I wanted to understand it roughly. But after all, I was just looking at it on the side, so sometimes it wouldn't be that in-depth. In this way, this time when everyone studies the Shurangama Sutra, there will definitely be opportunities to propagate the Dharma later. If there are opportunities to propagate the Dharma, and we understand its meaning particularly well, then Dharma propagation will also be very meaningful. I see that in the Han region, basically many great masters have already taught the Shurangama Sutra. Whether the great masters of relatively ancient times or the great masters of modern times, many people indeed place great importance on the Shurangama Sutra. All of you present here should also study the Shurangama well. For today's content, I think if we mainly speak at the literal level, it should be quite manageable. We won't need many scriptural quotations, logical proofs, or stories. Everyone knows that in our previous class, 3 years ago, we taught one obtains the profound and subtle mystery, and the mind is rendered pure and luminous in its intrinsic nature, thereby attaining the eye of purity. We had reached this point. The above was mainly about Venerable Ananda encountering some obstacles regarding the precepts. Later, what did the Buddha teach? Mainly, he taught the 7 locations of investigating the mind. This was all taught previously. Then below, we will teach the 10 kinds of pointing to the mind, or the 10-fold pointing to the mind, directly pointing to 10 kinds of mind. There are 10 aspects of direct pointing instructions. Actually, this can also be called a kind of direct pointing instruction. Below, he will mainly teach such things as revealing that the seeing nature is unmoved, revealing that the seeing nature is without migration, revealing that the seeing nature is without substance, all of which discuss the seeing nature, the nature without attainment, and so forth, continuously teaching about recognizing mind and seeing nature, how to see one's own mind. If we study this well, I feel it is like some of the direct pointing instructions of Dzogchen in the Tantric tradition. Indeed, there are some differences, but generally the direct pointing in Tantric practices and the kind of direct pointing instructions taught in the Shurangama Sutra are very similar in many ways. This also doesn't require receiving empowerment or completing the 500,000 preliminary practices. Anyone can study it, anyone can listen to it. In this way, it makes it quite convenient for us students. We ourselves can also rely on such direct pointing methods and should be able to attain realization. This is also what the Buddha personally gave as direct pointing to Ananda and other disciples. A very profound teaching, but in our process of studying, some parts might be rather difficult to understand. Perhaps because I myself have not received this transmission before and am relatively unfamiliar with it, this might be the reason. So when studying, everyone must also be focused. If there are some other commentaries, there are very many commentaries. In my house, there are about how many volumes? Extremely, extremely many. Previously, I kept all these upstairs. Now I'm generally at home, and there are particularly many at home, but I really don't have time to read them. Otherwise, if I had time, I would look more at how the ancient great masters explained it, and how the modern great masters explained it, and then how I myself understand it. This would also be good. Now let us continue our study of the 10 kinds of direct pointing instructions. The Buddha told Ananda, "You first answer me about seeing the bright fist." The Buddha asked Venerable Ananda, "You first give me an answer." Answer what? At that time the Buddha made his hand into a fist, and this hand might have emitted light because light emanates from the Buddha's body. Then he made a bright fist, making this fist, and showed it to the retinue, mainly Ananda, his bright fist. Then the Buddha asked Ananda and the others, "Why does this fist have brightness? How did it become a fist? With what do you see?" He said, "Regarding my hand's bright fist, regarding this bright fist of mine, you answer me. I ask you 3 questions. Why does it exist? Through what conditions was such a bright fist formed? Through what conditions did it come about? Then, how did it become a fist? What kind of form did it take? This bright fist, through what conditions does it have its shape and appearance? What kind of bright fist is this? This is the second question. The third question, with what do you see? Through what do you begin to see this bright fist? The Buddha asked Ananda this question. Actually, I'm thinking that the Buddha at that time personally used his hand to give instructions to everyone. What is this called? Generally speaking, this is called raising the hand in a fist to directly point to mind nature. In tantric practices as well, at that time Guru Padmasambhava pointed his finger toward the sky. Where is mind? Where is mind? Or sometimes we look at the moon, look at space, look at light, including crystals, or the guru takes off his upper garment and has the disciples look at his body. What does each of you see? Especially in the empowerments of the Nyingtik Yabzi that we teach, there are such direct pointing methods among them, but this is quite similar. At that time, the Buddha used his hand to directly point to Ananda and these other venerable ones. So for us, we also, whether it's a spiritual teacher or Dharma teacher, if they use this, perhaps they don't have a bright fist, just this hand fist, and say to everyone, look, regarding my fist, through what conditions did it come about? What is its present appearance? Finally, if you want to see it, through what do you see this fist? At such times, we can also answer just like Ananda, and we can also think about it ourselves. Oh, through what conditions did this come about? Regarding these conditions, regarding the Buddha's conditions, it should be the Buddha's special conditions for benefiting sentient beings, then his appearance is very majestic. What each member of the retinue sees might all be different, including the appearance of the fist. Each person might see somewhat different appearances, but as for what they see it with, most would say, I see it with my eyes. We, like Ananda, all feel that we definitely see it with our eyes, because when we see whether it's a bright fist or the Buddha's ordinary fist, we all think this is seen with the eyes. There should be something similar. So first, throwing out such a question, the Buddha said, regarding my bright fist, what are its conditions? The first two questions Ananda didn't answer. Mainly the latter question is more important. At this time, Ananda said, through the Buddha's entire body, Jambunada Suvarna, radiant like a jeweled mountain born of purity, therefore there is brightness. When Ananda answered, I see that the Buddha's entire body, his whole body, is actually extremely majestic and beautiful, like the golden color of Jambudvapa sandalwood. Regarding Jambudvapa sandalwood, actually in many treatises there are different explanations. The gold of this southern continent when the Buddha was in the world was particularly magnificent. In other treatises, the gold of Jambudvapa is not like our ordinary worldly gold nowadays, so the Buddha's entire body is like the gold of Jambudvapa, radiant like a jeweled mountain. This word radiant also has the meaning of brilliant red and might also be like the color of gold, particularly magnificent like a jeweled mountain. Then the Buddha's body, over immeasurable eons, was produced through countless pure merits. So the Buddha's hand fist, the Buddha himself has a body of light, and when any sentient being sees it, it is particularly majestic and beautiful. So your such fist actually came about through such conditions, with such a particularly majestic appearance. Perhaps in this, the first two questions have basically been answered. The Buddha arose from immeasurable pure merits, and his manifestation is also luminous and particularly beautiful. This is Ananda's first response to the Buddha. Then Ananda said, I actually observe with my eyes the wheel-like fingertips bent and grasped to show people, therefore there is the fist appearance. Venerable Ananda said, what do I see it with? I observe with my physical eyes, I see it with my physical eyes, and what my physical eyes see is, at that time, the Buddha's particularly beautiful 5 fingers, his 5 wheel-like fingers. He actually curled and grasped them up and showed them to us, sentient beings who have this karmic connection. In this process, there appeared this fist appearance, this appearance of a hand fist, a bright fist. From the surface, Ananda's answer at that time should be relatively correct. Previously, Khenpo Achuk also often said to disciples with karmic connections, do you see it? The image of Samantabhadra Buddha, how is my bodily appearance? Using the body mandala to give direct pointing, directly pointing to disciples with karmic connections. Of course, some people indeed see different appearances, while some people just talk nonsense, claiming to have seen such and such when they haven't seen anything. No matter what, for truly great accomplished masters, their bodily appearance or certain gestures are also methods for directly pointing to mind nature. From our perspective, indeed, the Buddha's body is different from other sentient beings, and at that time the Buddha also, for the benefit of sentient beings, used this hand fist to begin. The 5 fingers can be curled up, and when shown to others, this is what is called a fist. In this way, Ananda saw it with his physical eyes at that time. It wasn't heard, nor was it seen spiritually. Without eyes, one cannot see it. His answer has no errors. At this time, the Buddha told Ananda, The Tathagata today speaks truthfully to you. All wise ones should attain awakening through analogies. What he refers to here as wise ones, according to some commentaries, refers to those of medium faculties. Those of the highest faculties awaken upon hearing just once without needing analogies. As soon as they hear the Buddha's words slightly, or when he raises his finger in a bright fist, they already know and have awakened. Those who are relatively wise attain awakening through various analogies. When we teach Dzogchen as well, many Vidyadhara masters also rely on various analogies. Generally, in many tantric practices, during empowerments or direct pointing, there are all kinds of analogies, such as the elephant's gaze, the sage's gaze, or various postures and methods. Actually, these methods are ways of directly pointing to mind nature, what we call the symbolic transmission of the Vidyadharas. Actually, symbols are a kind of analogy or a kind of indication. Many in the Han region's Chan school are also like this, telling them some inexplicable things, or encountering strange circumstances, and they awaken on the spot. For those with true faith, perhaps when an accomplished guru scolds you, right while scolding you, you may have awakening on the spot. Or at that time, perhaps using, like in the biography of Marpa the translator or someone at that time, who was it? Taking his shoe, and who was it? It should be Naropa, right? Taking off his shoe and giving him a slap, and then he awakened. So the wise ones understand through analogies and such indicative methods. Then the Buddha continued to tell Ananda, for example, regarding my hand fist, if there were no hand, it wouldn't become a fist. If there were no eyes, you also wouldn't be able to see. Everyone knows this. So your eye faculty, because your eye faculty, relying on this, is the main basis for seeing. Then, using your eye faculty as an analogy, or the eye faculty as reference, and my fist, my bright fist, are these two the same in meaning? What does this mean? This place is mainly a double analogy, you know. One is the Buddha's fist for indication, and the other is Ananda's eye faculty. These two are used for analogy. So this is a way of understanding through analogy. So regarding the analogy, he said, if I had no hand, this fist would also not exist. The fist wouldn't form. If you had no eyes, you also couldn't see. So do you think your eye faculty is the same as my hand fist? Is it the same principle? Do you think this way? We should also probably, if we were asked, we would definitely be like Ananda. Yes, 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 yes. If you had no hand, there couldn't be a fist. If I had no eye faculty, I also couldn't see. So these are exactly the same. Both are indispensable. We might also think this way, but actually the Buddha's view is not like this. But Ananda, because he is after all a Shravaka practitioner, could not possibly understand many of the Buddha's profound intentions on the spot. So in the Shurangama Sutra, in appearance, Ananda in many places has such habitual tendencies quite similar to us ordinary beings. This is also very necessary because our solid grasping and Ananda's solid grasping back then are quite similar in many respects. Finally, we too, through certain reasons, through the Buddha's teachings that directly point to the human mind, can also achieve awakening. Why did many Chan masters later awaken through relying on the Diamond Sutra and Shurangama Sutra? On one hand, there is a kind of blessing power. On the other hand, these methods of directly pointing to mind nature are particularly close to us. This is related. So he asked Ananda at that time, are the hand and your eyes the same? So without a hand, it's impossible to form a fist. Without eyes, you also can't see. Do you feel these two principles are the same? Are they all equal, all the same? Do you think this way? Then Ananda answered. Ananda said, yes, indeed, world-honored one. Yes, yes, world-honored one. What you say is absolutely right. I also think this way. Without my eyes, I cannot see. Using my eye faculty as an example for the Tathagata's fist, the matters and meanings are similar. He said, what you say, world-honored one, is absolutely right. If I don't have my eyes, I cannot see the Tathagata's bright fist. Using my eye faculty as an example, the Tathagata's fist is also the same. Without hands, it's impossible to manifest your such fist. So he says here, without hands there cannot be a fist. Without eyes there cannot be seeing. This is Ananda's thinking, but actually it's not like this. Even without eyes, one can see. The Tathagata will finally present this to him. Why? Because the so-called seeing According to worldly people's thinking and explanations, seeing is done with the eyes. The mind cannot see. But actually, when observing with wisdom, not only can one use the eyes to see some things on the conventional level, but more importantly, even without eyes, not relying on eyes, one can also see in the mind. This can conventionally also be called seeing, and is actually also seeing. This is indeed so. Later, what we often call seeing, apart from the eyes, mind seeing is very important. Seeing with the eyes is unreliable. Why? Because the eyes are physical flesh. As stated in the Abhidharma Kosha, they are like sesame flowers, something with shape. Some other schools say the eye faculty is a special function and ability. There are also such explanations. But no matter what, when we humans die, the eye faculty will certainly undergo changes. According to the Pramanavartika, the habitual tendencies of our 6 faculties from past lives can continue to the alaya vijnana of future lives. There are also such explanations. It is, after all, a habitual tendency, so our entire physical eye faculty will definitely perish. In such circumstances, if you truly see, relying only on the eyes to see is unreliable, because it is destructible. As for mind seeing, the essence of mind is the luminous Tathagatagarbha. We all know this, so it is a kind of lasting awakening. There is still very profound content in this principle. So just now Ananda said, yes, world-honored one, without my eyes I cannot see, so my eyes and the Tathagata's fist should be similar in factual meaning and should be the same. Now we need to analyze that even without eyes one can see. We need to explain this principle. The Buddha began to refute Venerable Ananda's view. The Buddha told Ananda, your saying they are similar is incorrect. You say that eyes and hands are the same. Without eyes there cannot be eye seeing. Without hands there cannot be hand fists. Such a statement is incorrect. Actually, you are mistaken. Such equivalence is definitely unreasonable. This meaning is unreasonable. Why? If a person has no hands, the fist is completely extinguished. This is correct among the 2 things you just said. There are some errors. Why? Because if there are no hands, a person without hands also has no fist. This is acceptable. You see, there are some people in the world who have no limbs at all. Do they have fists? No, they don't. If both hands and arms are severed, does he have a fist? This is also non-existent. From this level, without hands there are no hand fists. This is reasonable. But for those without eyes, seeing is not completely absent, but it's somewhat different with eyes. Even without eyes, it's not that there is no seeing at all. It's not like that. Even without eyes, they still have seeing. So these 2 analogies are different. So the Buddha here began to analyze that even without eyes, one still has seeing, and it's not completely without any seeing. Why is this so? He then began to explain to him, you should try this on the road. Ask a blind person. You should test this. If you meet a blind person on the road outside, ask this blind person, what do you see? Ask this blind person, do you see anything? Don't we have tactile walkways for the blind on roads now? Some blind people seem to walk quite smoothly, walking very far and then turning back without needing a guide. They can go by themselves. At such a time, you ask them, can you see anything now? Those blind people will certainly answer you, before my eyes now, I see only darkness and nothing else. If you ask this blind person, is there anything you can see now? Then this blind person will definitely answer you. What will they answer? Oh, before my eyes now is pitch black. What I see is all dark. I see nothing. But they also say, indeed, sometimes when we close our own eyes, when closing our eyes, it seems perhaps we still have some eye faculty inside. When there's a light in front, it's slightly bright. If there's nothing in front, it's all dark. It seems I also see a kind of darkness. Only seeing darkness, not seeing light. So if we ask blind people on the road, can you see anything? They say, I can't see light, but I can see darkness. I only see pitch blackness. They would answer this way, there is no other seeing, only seeing everything as darkness. Observing with this meaning, if the external objects are themselves dark, how is seeing damaged? He said, observing with this meaning, if the external objects themselves are dark, what kind of damage is there for you? There is no damage. For blind people, the darkness before them can indeed be called seeing. In this case, is there any deficiency in their seeing? No, it's just that we who have eyes see light, while blind people without eyes see darkness. So it's just that one sees light and one sees darkness. Blind people are not lacking anything. This method of observation, using our modern analytical method, methods is quite interesting and has a certain logic. Of course, we might not accept this now. Some people say, no, blind people are not seeing, they don't see, it's just a kind of darkness. Actually, darkness, we ourselves can also say, is a kind of seeing. When I close my eyes, we can also think about it. For example, in front of light, when I close my eyes, there seems to be some brightness. Then in front of darkness, when I look, it's all dark. Now, some blind people, when they get up in the morning, seem to have a slight feeling and knowledge. Some are born blind, some don't know at all. Day and night are completely pitch black. There are also such cases. In this way, in their own feeling at that time, it seems there's a kind of not white vastness, but darkness. This is also their kind of seeing, in a certain sense. Because our true seeing, when observed through logic or Yogacara analysis, is actually quite difficult. According to the analysis in the Bodhikari-avatara and logic, analyzing objects, analyzing mind, analyzing faculties. At such times, seeing is indeed quite difficult. The other day, when we previously taught the 7 locations of investigating the mind and observed, analyzing inside and outside, indeed this mind ultimately cannot be found. Eye consciousness also cannot be found. This should be clear from before. After the Buddha said this to Ananda, Ananda was a bit embarrassed. He analyzed darkness below. Ananda still answered, saying, "Those blind ones see only darkness before their eyes. These blind people feel only darkness before them. How can this be called seeing? For worldly people, for example, they consider seeing light as worldly consensus. This is seeing. But regarding darkness, worldly people don't call it seeing at all, and it somewhat contradicts worldly conventions and concepts. Blind people cannot see things. Those with eyes can see things. So from the perspective of worldly conventions, no one in the world would acknowledge that blind people are just seeing pitch blackness before them. Actually, it can't be called seeing. This can't be called seeing." Then the Buddha said, "Hey Ananda, don't be so stubborn. Let me explain this to you properly again. Actually, what blind people see and what those with eyes see should have no difference. How is there no difference?" The Buddha told Ananda, "Those blind without eyes only observe darkness. Blind people, don't they have no eyes and only see everything as darkness, right? And a person with eyes dwelling in a dark room, then there is a person with eyes who, although having eyes, is made to dwell in a place with no light at all, in a dark room. Are the two darknesses different or not different? Now I ask you, the pitch blackness before the blind person just now and the pitch blackness before a person with eyes, for example, in a room where windows and doors are all sealed shut. Previously in Tibetan Buddhism, there was specifically the dark retreat. In dark retreat, outside there are 3 layers of walls with not a bit of light. At such a time, that kind of darkness and the darkness before blind people, this darkness, I ask you, is there a difference or no difference? You just answer me. Is there a difference or no difference? A blind person, born blind, the darkness before them, and a person with eyes, the darkness before them. These two, from the perspective of darkness, is there a difference or no difference?" At this time, Ananda had to admit somewhat reluctantly. Ananda said this, "Indeed so, world-honored one. This person in darkness and those blind groups, comparing the two darknesses, there has never been any difference." He had to admit that this person in darkness, a person with eyes, and what a group of blind people see. If we compare these two darknesses actually from the perspective of darkness, there really is no difference. We might, many people now personally test and experiment, a blind person who can't see anything. This kind of dark experience and a person in a dark house doing dark retreat, then these two seeings, from the level of seeing darkness, we can only answer that there is no difference. Because at that time the blind person indeed didn't see anything, and the person with eyes in this darkness also didn't see anything. In this case we have no choice but to admit there is no difference. Ananda was very honest, saying, "Yes." Now who knows? Ananda was increasingly being cornered until finally he was at his wit's end. Actually, this is a very good method of direct pointing. It might differ somewhat from Dzogchen's direct and immediate pointing, but this is a logical method of direct pointing. Then the Buddha continued to tell Ananda, if a person without eyes sees complete blackness before them, but suddenly gains sight, suddenly encounters a doctor or something, aren't many people nowadays undertaking these light projects? Apart from some who are born blind, basically those who later, due to human causes, temporarily cannot see, including cataracts or some eyes that cannot see. Every day there are, especially some elderly people, with cataracts who can't see anything, can't even see their own bowls. Later, through doctors performing surgery, adjusting the eye faculty or placing some lenses on them, don't they all see again later? Initially they were blind people who couldn't see anything. Previously, some people hadn't seen light for a long time when they truly saw light later. First, they shed tears and began to cry. Logically, they should be happy seeing light. But perhaps they had stayed in darkness for too long. When they first saw this world, they couldn't quite believe it. Perhaps this way. So he says here, if a person without eyes has complete pitch blackness before them, later, relying on various conditions, suddenly these eyes can see material forms, and before the external objects, they see various colors. Then various things are placed before them, including their own relatives, houses, light, flowers, whatever things they can see. What is this called? One who sees with eyes. One who can see with eyes is called one who sees with eyes. This is the first aspect. That person in darkness sees complete blackness before them. The previous is also the same. One is a person with eyes, and they also, when dwelling in a dark room, have complete darkness before them. Later, they again obtain lamplight. Then at this time, they also see various forms and appearances before the external objects. This is called lamp seeing. So comparing these two, just now one had no eyes, but later, through various methods, could already see forms. This is called one who sees with eyes. One person has eyes, but in pitch blackness cannot see. Later, someone might bring a lamp, and then upon seeing, wow, everything inside can be seen. This is also called one who sees by lamp. These two are very crucial. The former is called one who sees with eyes. The latter is one who sees by lamp. We think that the former, this one who sees with eyes, has this condition, seeing with the eyes. Then the latter, seeing by lamp. Of course, this analogy is within a specific scope, using a person's phenomenon as an analogy. At this time, if we analyze, if the lamp seer, if the lamp can see, it would not be called a lamp. If this lamp, let's not worry about the former for now. Regarding this lamp seer, can the lamp act as the seer? The lamp definitely cannot act as the seer because on one hand, it is an inanimate thing. If the lamp were the seer, then there would also be this fault below. So if the lamp can see, it's impossible for the lamp to see. This is called, it would not be called a lamp. If the lamp could see, the lamp might not be called a lamp. The lamp would be called eyes. Because can the lamp itself see? Definitely it cannot see. What does the lamp do? It only illuminates, only manifests for everyone, dispelling darkness. That's all. Apart from this, the lamp fundamentally cannot see. So from the lamp's perspective, wasn't it just now dependent on the lamp to see? In this case, regarding the lamp itself, it has no function as a seer. Furthermore, if the lamp sees, what concern is it of yours? If the lamp could truly see phenomena, then this lamp seeing things by itself, what relationship does it have with you, a person with eyes? What relationship does the lamp have? There's no relationship. It's not because of the lamp that you see. The lamp sees the vase by itself. The lamp sees other things by itself. In this case, what concern is it of yours? It's none of your business. So from this level, if one relies on the lamp to see, then this lamp is not the seer. The lamp is merely illuminating the things in the pitch dark room, that's all. So the seer should not be this lamp. Everyone knows the seer should be our own eyes or mind. It should be like this. Therefore, you should know the lamp can manifest colors. Thus, the seer is the eye, not the lamp. So from this analogy, we understand that this lamp only serves the function of manifesting forms, that's all. In this way, your seer is actually the eye, not the lamp. This analogy should be understood. For a person with eyes in darkness, what function does this lamp serve for them? The function of manifesting objects, not as the seer. So we say the lamp is not the seer, the eye is the seer, right? Then analyzing once more. The eye can manifest colors. Thus, the seeing nature is mind, not I. From another perspective, actually the eye is the same. Like the lamp just now, the eye cannot by itself. If you apply this reasoning, if the eye were the seer just now, then there would be no need for anything else. But actually the eye definitely cannot be the seer. We know, whether it's current scientific explanations or Buddhist explanations, the eye is our eyeball. But can this eyeball see things? Actually, it cannot see things. If it could see things, corpses also have eye faculties. Some people, when they die with their eyes wide open, very frightening eyes. But can they see people? They cannot see. So these eyeballs cannot be the seer. So what is the seer? Actually, the eye needs the cooperation of mind, what we call eye consciousness. Everyone knows that without the intervention of consciousness, one's own eyes definitely cannot see, because regarding the eyes, as we discussed before, according to Buddhist explanations, actually they are just a basis, a supporting faculty. What we speak of is only relying on it, relying on this door to see, that's all. Actually, the true seer, for example, a person looking outside through this window, the eye is like the window. Without this window, one cannot see. But actually, the person inside is the true seer. People often say it's the eyes that see, but if the eyes see, the eyes are our eye faculty. If this eye faculty can see things, there are many, many faults. Don't some people now, including some Qigong practitioners and teachers, through ear faculties, through fingers, in various ways, can distinguish things and perceive them, including colors and shapes? There are also such cases. So what people commonly consider as eye actually cannot see. What does this demonstrate to us? When a person with eyes relies on a lamp to manifest objects, the eye sees. This is the first step. Then relying on the eye faculty to manifest is also a kind of condition. Then this light, the Buddha's bright fist, is actually seen by the mind. At such times, this method of direct pointing here is quite special. Everyone should also know. Ananda answered that it was seen by the eyes, but in the end it says, it is mind, not I. That seeing nature, or seeing the Buddha's bright fist, is also like this. Actually, this principle, if some of Dzogchen's, for example, when contemplating Thogal, various appearances manifest. But initially, this relies on the door of the eyes. We call it telescope water lamp, using this to see. But actually, fundamentally, it's still this mind. So the deeper principles are also found in Dzogchen. These things we see outside are actually not seen by the eyes. They are seen by the mind. In this case, Ananda definitely said it wrong. He said, I saw it with my eyes. Actually, it's not seen by the eyes. It should be seen by the mind. If it's seen by the mind, then recognizing mind and seeing nature becomes very meaningful. So this directly points to such a teaching. This should be among our 10 kinds of pointing to mind instructions. The first one has been completed. Next is the second one. It would be good to finish both of these. The second, the instruction revealing that seeing nature is unmoved. Although Ananda heard what the Buddha just taught, he somewhat understood and somewhat didn't. Ananda and these Great Assembly members had all heard this entire analogy. The Great Assembly had also listened. After listening, their mouths acknowledged by default, but their minds had not awakened. It seemed they had nothing to say. To say they saw, that doesn't sound right either. If they didn't see, Ananda also had no way to use this to refute the Buddha's viewpoint. They had no choice but to remain silent. Perhaps they were somewhat unconvinced in their hearts. How could it be the mind that sees the Buddha? But they couldn't articulate a more suitable answer. They had no way to respond with words, but in their minds they had not truly awakened. It seemed they still didn't understand. Perhaps some Dharma friends today, when first hearing such methods, also somewhat understand and somewhat don't, thinking, how is it not the eyes that see, but the mind that sees? What does this mean? Like this. Then at this time, Venerable Ananda said, still hoping the Tathagata's compassionate voice will proclaim and reveal, joining palms with a pure mind, awaiting the Buddha's compassionate teaching. I hope the Tathagata, the greatly compassionate Tathagata, will use your compassionate voice to tell me once again. I join my palms and purify my body and mind and continuously await the Buddha's compassionate teaching. It seemed he didn't quite understand, because this is layer by layer. The direct pointings below come layer by layer, continuously. Sometimes the Tathagata opens his fist, sometimes opens it again, then closes it. continuously using this hand fist to directly point to mind nature. At such times, Ananda was still very skillful, continuously asking constantly more profound questions. He began asking the Tathagata, "Tathagata, I hope your compassionate voice will speak to us. My companions and I, with pure body and mind, particularly joyfully listen continuously. Could the Tathagata speak again in more detail? I can't explain it clearly. I somewhat understand, but as for awakening, I can't claim that now. Could you teach it once more?" Like this. Actually, the principles within this are very interesting. At this time, the world-honored one displayed his bright hand with the web-like characteristics of divine cotton. The Buddha's hand was like divine cotton. Divine cotton is a very soft type of cotton from India, soft, comfortable, or delicate, such a light web, not of ordinary flesh. A light hand with web-like characteristics, particularly soft. The Buddha began to display, spreading such a hand, then opened his 5 wheel-like fingers. Just now, when making the hand fist, it was like this. Now he opened his 5 wheel-like fingers, opening this fist. Then he taught and instructed Ananda and the great assembly. Then the Buddha began. Now, when giving them direct pointing, he told a story from the first turning of the Dharma wheel to directly point to mind nature. How did he directly point? He said, "When I first achieved enlightenment in India's Deer Park, for Ajñata is Kaundinya. The 5 bhiksus were Kaundinya, Bhiksu Ashvajit, etc., these 5 bhiksus and your 4 groups of disciples. And also at that time, this is Ananda among your 4 groups of disciples. You 4 groups of disciples, we could say this. At that time, when I first turned the Dharma wheel before the 5 bhiksus and others, bhiksus, bhiksuns, upasakas, and upasikas, the 4 groups of disciples, I once said this. The Buddha told a story from his past. All sentient beings do not achieve bodhi. All sentient beings do not achieve arhatship. The main reason is that all are misled by guest dust afflictions. All are due to guest dust afflictions. Today we will mainly discuss these 2 words, guest dust. Guest dust afflictions create obstacles. You all at that time, through what did you awaken? Now you have achieved sacred fruition. At that time the Buddha said, "You 5 bhiksus and others, now you have already awakened." Having awakened, actually all these sentient beings who do not achieve the fruition of Tathagata's perfect enlightenment or do not achieve arhatship, Shravakas, or Pratyeka Buddhas, the main thing is that this guest dust creates obstacles for us. Guest dust afflictions are obstacles. In this case, you 5 bhiksus, through what conditions did you awaken at that time? Through what conditions? Have you already obtained sacred fruition in this life? At that time, the Buddha asked the 5 bhiksus led by Kaundinya, he asked each of them, through what? The Buddha was certainly pretending not to understand, otherwise he would definitely know through what the 5 bhiksus had achieved awakening. He would certainly be clear about this. At that time the Buddha asked this. When he asked this, Kaundinya answered in this way at that time. Just now, didn't Ananda somewhat not understand and ask the Buddha to speak again? When speaking again, now it's not using analogies to speak, now it's using a story to speak. This method of direct pointing is also very important. If we have karmic connections here after hearing this story, regarding guest dust, so that's how it is. I recognize guest dust. As stated in the Beacon of Certainty, the obstacles themselves also have no inherent nature. Perhaps through such methods one can also achieve realization. Previously, Master Zhaozhou, while sweeping the ground in that monastery, when sweeping, a monk asked him, "You are such a great master, why do you sweep the ground?" Then he said, "Dust comes from outside, why shouldn't I sweep?" Then that monk said, how can there be dust in this pure sanctuary? Through this, it's said there was awakening, because sometimes, perhaps slightly, whether it's other stories or one's own stories, or stories of past great masters, or Kaundinya's story, after we hear them, this guest dust in our mental continuum, guest dust in Tibetan, Chankya Kutuktu translated as Ye Jin Chungpo, it seems dust means external objects, and guest means visitor, because below, when guest and dust are explained, it seems to be somewhat like this too, but when translated into Tibetan, Yejin Chungpo, external guests, guest dust has this meaning. Generally speaking, guest means sudden, incidental, the meaning of sudden. Not permanent dwelling, but coming incidentally. As for dust, it means obstacles. The meaning of guest dust is not the original nature, obstacles that come incidentally. Both afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations are guest dust, but when translating this, I don't know how to translate it. Now, when we compile dictionaries, compiling that tantric dictionary, I looked and saw that we also, 3 years ago, on October 22nd, 2019, on the day when the Shurangama Sutra teaching ended, established this dictionary group. But later, we encountered various circumstances, so we still haven't compiled the 2 words guest dust. We don't know how to handle guest dust when the time comes. In any case, Chankya Kutuktu translated it this way: guest dust is Yejin Chung Po, external guests. External dust, dust refers to the 6 dusts. The 6 dusts are form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and phenomena, meaning external objects. Guests coming from external objects, external guests. This can be explored further when the time comes. At that time, Venerable Kaundinya stood up before the Buddha and said, "Among all of you present here, I am considered an elder. Regarding elders, some are elders by age. Those with high ordination seniority are also called elders, and some who have already awakened are wisdom elders. There are also some who might call themselves elders while being nothing at all, thinking they are old bhiksus, like this. As for Kaundinya, certainly in wisdom and ordination seniority at that time, he should have been an elder among them. Among the great assembly, he alone gained the name of understanding. At that time, among the 5 bhiksus and others, weren't there 80,000 devas and such? Among all these, he was the first to gain liberation. Alone gained, he was the first to gain the name of liberation. How did he achieve liberation? Through awakening to the 2 words guest dust, he achieved fruition. Didn't the Buddha just ask, through what conditions did you attain sacred fruition? Then Kaundinya said very proudly, I awakened through those 2 words guest dust at that time. Sometimes, didn't I mention before that if we transform illness into the path, illness is not a good thing, but when transformed into the path, it also becomes practice. Guest dust is originally not a good thing, but if you realize its nature, through it you can also achieve realization. Everyone should remember, if others ask, how did Kaundinya achieve realization? Oh, through the 2 words guest dust. This is the correct answer. Then Kaundinya said, world-honored one. At that time, how did he realize guest? How did he awaken to dust these 2? He said, world-honored one. At that time, his understanding was, like traveling guests who lodge at an inn, they lodge or stay in a guest house. Whether they lodge or eat, they will certainly stay here temporarily. For example, if a guest comes to a certain hotel, they bring their luggage and all sorts of things, then they stay there, eat there, sleep there, continuously staying here. But after the food and lodging are finished, after they've eaten several meals and stayed for several days, then their money runs out and their business is finished. They begin to continue their journey, preparing to depart. They begin to prepare all their luggage and after getting ready, continue forward. They cannot remain settled. They cannot stay there continuously because they are, after all, guests. They cannot stay there continuously. If it were the actual host, whether the hotel or the owner of that inn, they would have nowhere to go continuously. They wouldn't continuously have somewhere to go. Then they wouldn't be the host. They'd be a guest. So if they are the host, they stay here continuously. Thinking thus, not dwelling is called guest. At that time, Kaundinya thought this way. Guests come temporarily and cannot stay long-term. Because of this principle, he contemplated in this way. After contemplating, not dwelling is called guest, dwelling is called host. He thought for a moment, those who usually dwell are called hosts, while those who temporarily pause there are called guests. Those who do not dwell are called guests by meaning. Finally, what principle did he comprehend? Finally, those who do not dwell, that is the meaning of guest. Then he thought, mainly, if this is applied to mind nature, it would be quite good. Our mind nature is like the host, while the afflictive and cognitive obscurations, the obstacles are like guests. So using the analogy of a guest, he finally understood that the obstacles in his mental continuum are incidental. The true host, his own luminous mind nature, at this time, using the guest analogy, he had already realized the word guest. We probably wouldn't do this. When seeing a guest, we'd argue with them. Guest is guest, let them leave early. Then after they leave, we gain no realization, but truly like Kaundinya from a guest. Temporarily staying here and then leaving, through this principle he compared the guest to obstacles and the host to mind nature, and thus achieved awakening. First, the meaning of guest, he understood it this way. Great masters, including Kaundinya, we often call them Shravaka Arhats, but through this analogy of guests, they understood that obstacles are incidental. This is the first aspect. Then the second aspect. How did he understand dust? Also, like after new rains, when clear sunlight rises to heaven, light enters through cracks, illuminating the dust forms in space. For example, after it rains, the sky should be bright, a clear day. After we have rain here, it seems now it's always here, raining and snowing. After this, the sky becomes even clearer. The sky is very unobstructed, particularly pure, like the sky after rain, very pure. At this time, if the sun's light shines in the sky and this light enters through gaps, enters through, for example, windows or skylights, this light begins to shoot forth. When it shoots forth, illuminating in space. At this time, if you look directly into the sky, you discover dust forms in the air, many particles of dust. The meaning is, through the skylight or when you're in a room, you see that the sky after rain is particularly bright, pure and clear. At this time, when sunlight shoots through these gaps, under the sunlight's illumination, before the light, we often see sometimes dust flying, sometimes light dust, sometimes this kind of many particles under sunlight that can be seen under the sunlight's illumination. At that time, we discover that the nature of dust is movement, while facing that space is serene, immovable. So Kaundinya, perhaps at that time a guest came, and after the guest left, he could sunbathe in the room. After rain, the sun was good, and then under the sunlight he saw this dust. It turned out this dust was moving, while space was not moving. Within this, he mainly recognized that space is unmovable. This space represents our mind nature. Our mind nature is unmovable. Dust corresponds to obstacles. Obstacles are movable, but what is truly unmovable is our mind nature. After contemplating at that time, oh, the serene and clear is called space nature, and the moving is called dust. Those that move in this way are called dust by meaning. What kind of awakening did he achieve? Through this movement and non-movement, the relationship between dust and space, then movement and non-movement, he understood the relationship between the obstacles of our mind and mind nature. Then Kaundinya achieved awakening in this way. Guest and dust. The explanation of guest dust here is very good. In the future, if we teach the Dharma, or if others ask us, what is this guest dust in your Buddhism? How is this guest dust explained? Oh, look in the Shurangama Sutra. The Buddha specifically told Kaundinya's story. Kaundinya originally achieved awakening by recognizing the nature of guest dust and attained the fruition of arhatship. Actually, regarding these arhats, sometimes truly, including in the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, including Shariputra, he awakened through the principle of the long-nailed Brahmin. There are many good stories. Here the Buddha told this story. Then the Buddha said, "It is so." When Kaundinya said this at that time, the Buddha also answered him at that time, yes, you truly came this way. The Buddha had already acknowledged this principle. Today we'll teach up to this point. Among the direct pointings to mind nature, among the 10 direct pointings to mind nature, the second direct pointing instruction is completed.
Kirgana jirano chupai, chupun zolen droa droa
Bandangara Badna Sadarda Bandangara Badna Sada Bandangara Badna Sadarda